Well, good afternoon. Hope everyone is well. I'm very excited about the opportunity to share some reflections on leadership with all of you today. And having a chance to see some of the videos from the past was actually very insightful for me as well. And so I'm really glad that BizTimes Media is committed to doing this on an annual basis, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share with you. So a few reflections personally from my experience in education, something that I always knew that I wanted to do, but administration was something that I didn't anticipate and in a lot of ways wasn't quite prepared for going into teaching. But as things started to develop, you start to realize when that door, someone comes knocking, you need to walk through the door and take advantage of opportunities as they're presented. And so the first thing for me that I always think about is the importance of embracing the skin that you're in. There's only one you. Oftentimes, we try not to come from our experiences. It is very clear that I am under the age of 40, I am a black woman. And so it doesn't make sense to try not to be that person. That's who I am. But in order to be able to connect with people, you've got to be confident in who you are and not apologize for it. And so the first thing for me is really being able to embrace and be strong and stand in who I am as a woman, as a black person, and as a person under the age of 40 in the superintendency. There aren't that many of us. And so it really requires a strong amount of confidence in who I am and being comfortable with who others are and being able to have that connection, especially if you're in roles where you have to advocate for others. If you can't advocate for yourself, how are you going to advocate for others? How are you going to lead others? And so that's very important that you know who you are as a leader, what you stand for, what you're about, and the work that you're able to do, because that passion, that drive, it will carry you. Another important factor, I always think about this concept of youth, and it really is an asset. It is not something to apologize for. When I first went into administration, I was 27. I was working in central office down in Clayton County, Georgia, and I never told people how old I was, because, that was the first question. I'm like, hi, how are you? Aren't you a little young to be here? And I used to always feel like I had to, make excuses for it and try to be older than I really was, and that's silly. Being young, you have an energy and a fresh perspective that you bring to the table that others haven't heard of. And they become more comfortable with who they are when you're comfortable with who you are. And so being able to embrace being young is really important. It's not something that you need to apologize for. I think the other piece that ties into this really is around being willing to ask for help. When you're young in this work, you're not going to know everything. Even if you've been doing something for 30 years, you still don't know everything. And so it gives you permission to be able to ask for help when it's needed. And I think that sometimes, as young folks, we don't want to do that. We want to try to act like we've got all the answers. And there really is a beauty in our youth in being able to say you don't know everything and to be able to ask for help. And I think the other thing that, we don't like to talk about as leaders, but being able to make mistakes and just knowing that you're going to make mistakes coming into something when you're new or it's your first time, but it's how we learn from them that you demonstrate true maturity. And that's not age driven. That's really, these are just personal behaviors that you can demonstrate. So again, I think youth really is an asset that we must embrace as leaders. Another one for me really is around seeking structured and informal mentoring opportunities, being able to surround yourself with other leaders who are doing the work and some leaders who aren't. I think it's good to have perspectives on both sides, from being able to pick up that phone, call another superintendent, and they're going to ask the same 3 questions over and over again. I can't divulge what those are, but it's a common language, and it's refreshing to be with other people who are doing the same work that you're doing. But you also have to have others who are able to take that step away and give that feedback and be able to troubleshoot some different things that you may not have thought about from a different perspective. And so as leaders, I know, we like to think we have all the answers, but we don't. And so being able to have those opportunities to learn from others who've done the work before or others who are in leadership and who have something to offer, I think is a very valuable skill and a practice as leadership that's important to adopt. The fourth thing is making sure that your work speaks for itself. Oftentimes, and I know as someone who's been mobile and been in a lot of places, you have to stay somewhere long enough to be able to make impact, to be able to tell your story. And the work is going to tell your story better than anything that you can say. You always show people better than you can tell them. And so any place that you've been, you hear people do presentations, they read your resume, right? You've got to have something to share, something that tells what you're capable of. And I think sometimes we fall in this trap, and as I'm a borderline millennial, I'm a Gen Xer, but we're always accused of hopping jobs too much, getting promoted too quickly. And so it's important to take advantage of those opportunities, but also to stay somewhere long enough where you can really make an impact. You can learn the ropes, be able to take what you've learned to go other places. Another one that's really important is around committing ourselves to lifelong learning. The work never ends. This is a constantly changing field in education, and so making sure that you're staying current in the work, reading those journals, making sure that you're taking time to see what is the new research that's out there, and having conversations and meaningful dialogue with colleagues who are doing this same work. It's important that we stay current. Just today I was at another event, and someone who isn't in education just came up to me and asked about a certain book and wanted to talk about it, and I was so surprised that they'd even read it, but it's something we've got to make sure that we're all having engaged in these tough conversations around the work so that we can do a better job. And I think last but not least, and this is something we definitely don't talk about enough as leaders, but it really is around that work-life balance and making sure that we take time for ourselves. Because a lot of times in leadership, this is self-sacrificing work, and sometimes frowned upon if we're taking that time to balance life and work. And one thing that's so refreshing, and the conversations that you hear over and over again around millennials, is that that's the first thing people say about millennials, is that they're very committed to work-life balance. And I think that goes unchecked a lot of times, but it's something that really should be a stronger part of our organizations. And NPS employee wellness is one of our top priorities, as well as the wellness of our young people, but making sure that we've established some way to have that work-life balance. As someone who's recovering from a sinus infection for the past 2 weeks, it was that wake-up call for myself, right? And so making sure that you take time for those personal retreats, whether it's just cutting the phone off for a few hours, whether it's taking time for yourself. We're not going to do date night tonight, the kids, we're going to get a babysitter, or I'm not going to visit my parents, or I'm not going out with the girls. We're just going to take time for self. And that's really important so that you can re-energize and be fresh and be able to lead the organizations, because they are depending on us to be at our very, very best. And we can't do that if we aren't taking care of ourselves. I can't stress the other factors of just really making sure that you're connected with family and friends. That's where we get our energy from when we're at those lowest points as leaders, being able to call on those people who are going to love you unconditionally. And so there's a lot of days when I'm just too tired to do much of anything, but it's like, I can't just text my parents to see how they're doing, or see how my best friends are doing, or talk to my goddaughter, or that kind of thing. And we've got to make sure that we make more time for that. And I think the other piece is goal setting. While you're caught in this work and doing your day-to-day, never lose touch of those goals that you have for yourself personally, professionally, financially, because all of that is a part of wellness too. Leadership is a very exciting journey. It's a lot of work, but my goodness, you can do so many good things where you're able to stand on your own 2 feet, strong and confident, and embracing a lot of best practices for self and for leadership, and to better lead your organization. And so I hope you have fun today and learn a lot from other people. I appreciate the opportunity to share with all of you, and let's continue to do good things for our city. Thank you.